Hi, I'm with Rivuewe Studios, and this is a film critique. The Witch, aka The Vitch, directed by Robert Eggers, stands as one of the most visually striking indie horror films of the past decade.
Then take your leave, and trouble us no further.
Crafted on a very moderate budget, so today I'll be breaking down how Eggers and his cinematographer achieved its raw immersive look, while using a very specific filmmaking technique to keep the cost low. Most horror films rely on big budgets, flashy CGI, and over-the-top scares. But The Witch, it did something different. With just $4 million, Eggers created a haunting period piece that felt disturbingly real. So much so they didn't even need those traditional horror tricks to get under your skin.
Oh, my children, I beg thee, my Christ.
So how did a first-time director with a small budget, and I mean small, pull off one of the most immersive horror films of the decade? Let's break it down. Authenticity over excess. Many low-budget horror films cut corners. The Witch did the opposite. Eggers went all in on the historical accuracy, the dialogue lifted straight from 1600s Puritan diaries, the set built using 17th century tools, even the costumes were hand-stitched with period-accurate materials. This obsession to detail wasn't just for show, it made the world feel eerily authentic. You weren't watching a horror movie, you're witnessing a Puritan nightmare unfold in real life. But here's the thing, most period films are expensive, but The Witch stayed lean by filming in the woods of Canada using a single farmhouse set and relying on natural light. The actors weren't even A-listers, but they delivered performances that made the film feel even more believable. Anya Taylor-Joy, in her breakout role, carried the film with a rawness that made every moment feel personal. Despite its low budget, it became one of the most talked about horror films. It proved you didn't need a massive budget to create something terrifying, just a clear vision and obsession with detail. Robert Eggers went from an unknown filmmaker to one of the most respectable voices in modern horror, all because he stuck to his vision. In doing so, he gave us film that felt less like a movie and more like a cursed artifact from another time. Horror movies have a formula: rising tension, fake jump scares, and a loud climax. This film rejected that entirely. The camera moved slowly, forcing the audience to search for danger in every frame. The lighting was almost entirely natural. If a character holds a candle, that's the only light source in the scene. Sound design played with silence, no orchestral cues telling you when to be scared, just the wind, the creaking of the trees, and distant, unplaceable noises.
Deliciously.
Yes.
Wouldst thou like to see the world?
What will you from me?
The horror isn't what happens, it's the anticipation of something happening. A25's signature slow burn, atmospheric horror. This movie helped define a new wave of horror. And the best part, the film's greatest strengths, its slow pacing, immersive realism, and psychological horror weren't despite the low budget, they were because of it. The Witch didn't rely on Hollywood tricks, it created something much scarier, a world that felt real and a fate that felt inevitable. The Witch didn't just tell a story, it transported us to an era where fear wasn't fictional. It was woven into daily life, and the scariest part, almost everything in this film actually happened. The harsh, desaturated colour palette, muted tones made the film look like a faded oil painting from the 1600s. A lot of people thought the film was in black and white, but it wasn't. They used real folklore too. Instead of inventing horror, Eggers pulled from actual Puritan myths, making every eerie detail feel disturbingly authentic. It was based on real stories, and that's what made the movie what it is today. No artificial lighting, minimal set design, and a single filming location. It was a side effect of its budget, but it was the entire point. The entire farm was built using only 17th century tools, keeping every frame historically accurate. He didn't just save money, he trapped his characters in a setting where paranoia couldn't fester. It was purpose. It was real. Now, we all know A24 movies, their signature horror style. It's slow, it's atmospheric, and it's weird. But that's what made it unstoppable. It made it feel less like a film and more like a warning. Some horror films scare you in the moment, others linger, creeping into your thoughts days later. But this film, it does something different. It doesn't just scare you, it makes you feel like you've witnessed something forbidden, something unreal. Now, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but the scene that made me the most traumatized was the one with the witch in the coven and the baby. It was a real-life death sentence to me. He resurrected an error, trapping us in a world where isolation, paranoia, and the fear of the unknown were just films. Instead, there were themes. Most horror films have characters who feel like, well, movie characters. They delivered clever dialogue, make predictable decisions, and react in fear in ways that remind you this is just a story. But The Witch did the opposite. The dialogue wasn't modernized. Instead, the actors struggled through archaic Puritan speech, making their conversations feel unnatural and alien. There was also no traditional horror pacing, and the family felt weird, it felt real, and it was a unit. The fear of the woods, the fear of the family, the fear of each other, and their faith is so raw that it made you forget they're really acting. This wasn't a horror movie made to entertain, it was made to immerse, to make you feel like you're standing in there with them, watching a family slowly destroy itself, and ultimately lead to its end. Also, just to point it out, the movie had no witches. Sure, it had one or two scenes, but the whole point of the horror was to be based around witch, right? Witches are scary, they're in all our childhood's lives, but the real horror wasn't the witch, it was the fear of the witch. Every shadow in the wood felt threatening, even though you rarely see what's lurking. Every argument within the family felt like a build-up to violence, even when nothing was happening. Every time someone prays, it feels like they're begging for protection for something that we don't understand. It's about what we expect to see, and by keeping the supernatural almost entirely in the background, he made it feel inescapable. This is the power of Eggers and his filmmaking, and what we didn't get to see in the movie. So, was The Witch just a film, or is it something more? That's the thing about horror, real horror. It doesn't need blood, it doesn't need monsters. Sometimes all it takes is a whisper in the dark, a lingering glance from a goat, or the slow realization that the scariest thing isn't what's out in the woods, it's what's already inside you. And that's why this film stays with you long after the screen fades to black, not because of what you saw, but because of what it made you feel. And if that feeling never really goes away, maybe, just maybe, you were the one being watched all along. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. Was The Witch a masterpiece or just another slow burn horror film? And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into film. Until next time.